Welcome hunters. In this video I will go over some endgame builds I use in my hunts. At the end of this video you have a few builds you can work towards or try out and see how they fit. In Monster Hunter Wilds the meta is still shifting, so you see very generic and very specific builds for certain monsters. This video is for people that are trying to move towards the endgame and have a proper build and just do not care too much about speed but also want to have okay hunt times, and this is not specifically aimed to speedrunners. Some of these builds are being used speedrunners, but speedrunning is more about skill than the armor in my perspective. Every build out there has little variations. Even if you have the build that has raw most damage potential, it still all depends on how good the player actually is in managing the monster and doing DPS as quickly as possible. For the Insect Glaive, that is how fast can you get your extracts and how do you use them effectively? By using your rising spiral slash with the most damage at the right moment. So I use specific builds for most of the harder monsters, but not for every monster. Before we get into armor, let's talk about weapon and the Kinsect first. Currently, in almost all cases, Artian weapons still come out on top. The new Cecilia weapon can come close if you want to have a different weapon to look at. I cannot really wait for weapon layering, by the way. But an Artian weapon with good rolls still wins overall for the Insect Glaive, in my opinion. For the element, you basically have to go with the element that the monster you're fighting is weak against. So in the best case scenario, you have an Artian weapon with every element ready to go. And use the attack infusion on all the parts when crafting the weapon. That's still currently the way to go. For the harder monsters in the game, namely Gormagala, Arkveld and Soshia, I normally have one weapon with dragon element, as it really works for those three. My other go-to weapon is one with the paralysis status effect, because that status effect really helps you. It guarantees almost 2 paralyzed cycles per hunt. As Monster Hunter Wilds will go on, you will get new weapons. So if you're looking at the Arc-Tempered Raydao, it would be interesting to look at an ice-based Artian weapon for maximum damage to Raydao. Currently for reinforcements, 4 attack boost and 1 sharpness boost is still the best you can get. But anything you close to that is fine. It's only a minor DPS loss, so if you really go for the perfect rolls or speed running or anything like that, I can understand. But if you get something different like I have, because the RNG gods hate me, having something a little bit less or a little bit different than that still is a pretty good weapon. So don't worry about that too much. So the Kinsect you need to take as a personal preference. But if I'm going serious, and which I usually equipped, is I'll go with my Arc Maiden. And the reason for that is the Kinsect boost harvest extract allows you to extract 3 extracts in one go, and it has fast charge, which is really good. Great for grabbing all 3 extracts at once. It is just so good. Having said that, I also see speedrunners mix it up with options like the Foe Beetle. To be honest, you need to pick what fits your style, but definitely give the Arc Maiden a try. For my comfy builds, I also sometimes switch to Kankadamen. I hope I pronounced it right, because that is a shitty name. To have the insect power paralysis with it, to synergize with my weapon paralysis, and with that I normally get about almost 3 paralyzed cycles, which is just good. So if I'm fighting low level monsters or something like that and I just want to have fun and don't want to worry too much, I switch to that. It's just a fun way to play and gives you a lot of room to do a lot of damage with the paralyzed procs going on. So also fun within a group. Nothing much else to say on weapons. Just hope RNG gods bless your rolls and don't have my luck. Weapon decorations really depend on your armor build. But what you see within speedrunning, and which I use as well, I usually slot a critical jewel 3, and speedrunners normally also do another critical jewel 3 in there. I have a critical jewel 2. Why the 2? Because I only have 1 3. I told you the RNG gods hate me. For the last slot, I go either with sharpness gems, or I go with a mastery gem, or something like flight / expert gem in the last slot. It really depends on what you favor, what you want to do. So there you can just slot in a flight or an expert gem. So in summary, the best DPS for the glaive is with the element the monster is weak to, created with 3 parts with attack affinity, and reinforced with 4 attack boost and 1 sharpness boost. Gems, 2 critical jewel gems, and the last slot is just whatever you favor. Let's get into armor. So one quick note, if you're like me, build videos can be quite annoying and you have to scrub through the whole video to see the whole full loadout. If you're here just for the builds, I understand, I do it myself. So I added timestamps in the video and made an infographic for these specific builds, just showcasing the whole build. You can just go to all stat and then you see the whole build, and then you can just see what armor, what gems, without just going back and forward to see what you need to build that. So hopefully that helps. With that said, let's jump into the first build. So the first build I want to run through is not really, from my perspective, a really end game build, but it's something to work towards against, and this can help you towards the more harder monsters later on. Is what I've been using a lot after level 30, roughly. Quite simple, using the Udra helm, as it gives you resentment and counter-strike, which is really good skills in that level. Then parrying that with the Arc Vulcan Mail and the Guardian Arcveld Vambraces for that weakness exploit rank 1 and level 2, so making it rank 3. And using your exploited charm to gain another 2 levels and having weakness exploit level 5. Weakness exploit on for Insect Glaive players is, I think, one of the best skills to have, because the more wounds you can create and utilize, the faster you can get all your 3 extracts, the more you can go into Rising Spinal Slash, which is just too good to go through. Then end up with the Gore Coil and the Gore Greaves, also the B version, so I use the B versions of all of these. Basically for the 2 set bonus here, for some constitution, extra stamina, and of course for the antivirus. I think this is a relatively easy build to get after level 30 and really good overall, except offensive it's a little bit weaker and not as good as other endgame builds from my perspective, but it really does the job. So going into the gems. So as stated before, for the weapon gems, I've got the Flight Expert Jewel and the Critical Jewel 3 and 2. I got the Mighty Jewel on my head pieces and the Challenger and Mighty Jewels on my chest. Moving towards the hands, I've got the Shock Jewel and the Physical Jewel, just to make sure that I don't interfere with other people, and the Physic Jewel just for the stamina depletion and for the constitution levels. Chain Jewel for getting extra damage when you hit multiple times, which is really good for the Insect Glaive as your earplugs, just for level 1, just to make sure that you are a little bit more immune to the roars. And then the Challenger Jewel in my feet with 2 Chain Jewels to mitigate the antivirus and basically getting the frenzy cleared faster, doing some extra damage. So looking at the overall skills, critical boost 5, critical eye here, airborne level 1, weakness level 5 and constitution level 4, basically supporting the maximum might. And you have antivirus level 3 and then agitate level 2 with resentment, burst and counter-strike and earplugs helping you out. So this overall is a really damaging build and has all things going for it, having the maximum might with pairing with the constitution and having that weakness exploit level 5, meaning that it's really powerful till endgame, to be honest. So this is one really pretty easy to get. You will be able to fight Arcveld and the Gormagala if you have 1 or 2, if you have a level 6 Gormagala, 6-star Gormagala. It's easy to just get these powerful build, doing a lot of damage after hitting a weak point, having 30% increased affinity with an extra 20% of wound. So it's really good overall build and really help you towards more of the end game. So what else do I have in store? Let's just go to manage my loadouts. So this is just my progression build, and here we have the high DPS builds. Here we're just going in towards the, I think a lot of speedrunners use this build, is the Gormagala 4 set. Basically utilizing the Gormagala Tyranny. In this set you have the 4-piece Gormagala with Arcan Vulcan chestplate on here. Also here again Mighty Jewels. I go for earplugs level 2 here, and the reason why I do that is that towards Arcveld and stuff like that, you just want to have the level 2 earplugs just to make sure you're immune to roars. Using the Might Gems for extra damage when your stamina is full. Of course the Saint Jewels to make sure you clear that frenzy quicker, and that Penrise Jewels to make sure you have the weakness exploit towards level 5. The constitution level 3, maximum might, antivirus, evade window as well helps you a little bit more in the higher level monsters. And also here I changed to the mastery jewel, because you do sometimes switch to the mastery jewel just to have a little bit more sharp. So overall build, the thing what I have with this build, especially if you are having trouble with these monsters, this build, what I dislike about it, it doesn't really have that much defense. So it does have a lot of water resistance, but it doesn't really have overall a lot of defense, and it can be prone if you have good hits by Arcveld that you get carded quite quickly if you don't pay attention. If you're not that skilled within the game, then this might be a challenging build for you to play. A lot of speedrunners do use this build because it's one of the builds that has the maximum damage potential, but sometimes it's just a challenge if you're not good at just evading these monsters and their hits. So just be aware of that fact with this specific build. Looking at one of my favorite builds, and it's the last one I go over, and I just use it as the comfy builds, as I call them. And this is a bit higher level endgame build because you need to be able to kill Soshia just to get the parts you need. And I'll just grab the Soshia one. So here I basically ditch Gormagala set altogether. Is that best for highest DPS? No, it isn't. But for having a comfy build, it does wonders. Overall build, and I'll just show you, has critical boost level 5, airborne level 1, weakness exploit level 5. Uses the combination of agitator and maximum might, and agitator actually has a lot of uptime, so it's really good. And I also fire the fire resistance level 3, having the recovery speed, earplugs, and counter strike, and dragon resistance in there as well. But this overall build might not have the biggest damage and the highest damage potential. Actually, the Insect player can have, but it does have a lot of defense. Recovery speed and your fire resistance, especially at Soshia, makes Soshia cake. Makes it so easy because you're not inflicted by burn. So you're basically, if you're being hit by a fire attack, it doesn't really do anything. You hardly feel it. It's like, it makes that fight so much easier. I had in the beginning when I did Soshia, I had a little bit trouble with it, but after this build, it was so much easier. So I'm also using this on other builds, right? This is just a comfy build. This is when I want to sit in my chair and just want to play and make it easy. So going over the gear itself, I use the head of Soshia here for agitator and recovery speed. I use the Arcan Mail for the weakness exploit. I use the Suwu Fem Braces for the earplugs level 1. And I use the weakness exploit level 2 and recovery speed for the Arcan Vulcan Coil. They're all B except for the legs, where we have the Numinous Greaves A, also from Soshia, with the counter strike and recovery speed. Using the exploit, the charm, to finish off weakness exploit to level 5. And I use the corrupted mantle. I didn't really talk about mantles because I think that in most DPS builds, corrupted mantle still on top. Going into, so my weapons is Jill's Flight Expert and Critical Jill and Critical Jill 2, sadly. And then we go for the Challenger Jill and the earplugs. And I go to 2 times earplugs in this build just to make sure that I have in total level 3 earplugs. So basically no rush will affect me. Especially with Soshia, it makes that fight so much easier. So I've got the Dragon Rash Jewel here because I just really had bad dragon resistances. You can switch this out for anything else. Maybe Shockproof if you're playing with more players, or a Physique Challenger to get another level in agitator. And then I use the mighty builds here as well. The only thing what I'm trying to do is that I do not really have constitution in this build. So mighty Jewel sometimes, especially in the fight, if you use a lot of stamina, if you use a lot of air attacks, the mighty Jewel goes off and on. Something you need to be aware of. To be honest, it's still really powerful, so I still use it. You would rather have some more constitution. So you might maybe say, okay, I'm going to use the Dragon Rest Jewel, Dragon Resistance Jewel, and I'm going to pick something up for extra constitution. In my opinion, it's not really needed. If you're close by, your stamina bar really recovers really quickly and your maximum mind will be active quite quickly. So for me, it's just my style of play. I really don't differ too much. If you really go for high DPS and you want to have the best DPS, yes, you need to probably have more constitution in your build. That's fine. So other 3 more might gems just to get that level 3, and then I have the fire rest gems. And for me, this setup you can just use for every apex monster and just switch out the fire rest for anything else you're fighting. So for Raydao, for instance, the Arc Raydao, you can chase this in thunder and just make sure you're resistant to thunder, and you basically have a way easier time, right? If you're speedrunning, if you're going for the sub 5 minutes for Soshia, yeah, this is not the build you need to look at. But if you want to have fun, run and kill the monster fairly easy, this build can really help you. And here I another have a Dragon Rest. Just dragon resistance on this build, specifically build, is low, so I needed 2 to just basically come even on 0. But you can also switch that out for something else and just playing around a little bit with those gems. And it's still a powerful build to play with, and it's fun to play with, right? Having Counter Strike there, level 2, having the maximum might agitator and weakness exploit plus the critical boost still gives you a lot of damage overall. Does his job on every endgame monster. Yeah, for me, this is a fun build to use. And again, I said it in the beginning, I'm lazy. So what makes this build really shine is the combination of the Super Recovery 1 and the Arcfelt Hunger. Basically having your health gauge constantly recover, but also using the Arcfelt Hunger to constantly restore your health. So you're basically constantly also working on your health, and it's actually regenerating. That makes the fight, especially if you get hit more often, a lot easier. And mind you, I still get sub 13 times on Socia, for example. So it's not really a bad. Yeah, it's not under sub 5 with all these high DPS. But for a normal player, sub 15 minutes, I think it's really good if you're looking at Socia. If you don't think so, correct me if I'm wrong. If you just have a normal player that plays 2 times a week, getting under sub 15 is a very good time. And this is just an easy build. It really is hard for you to die. You can easily recover. Build itself helps you recover, but you still dish out a lot of damage. For me, it's best of both worlds. Also using those resistances, so you triple up on your defenses. Resistances, Socia's Pulse with Super Recovery 1, and with Arcville's Hunger. It's just a really fun build to play. Trust me on that one. And that wraps up my builds for this video. I hope you liked the builds. If it helped you out, drop a like, give a comment down below. As Monster Hunter Wilds will progress, so will my build, so I will keep my build videos updated. Until next time, stay sharp and happy hunting.